Welcome back to HorseRacingNation.com's look at the 2013 Kentucky Derby contenders. This is our second video. I'm Jared Horak. I'm once again joined by Ryan Patterson.
It's Kentucky Derby time, Jared.
It definitely is, and we're excited. And speaking of Horse Racing Nation, we have a brand new site redesigned.
Right, yeah, it looks beautiful. I think this is the blinkers on that the site needed, you know. It's just going to push us forward. We're going to be even faster and better.
Well, definitely a good timing right before the Derby so that you come over and check out our new site and tell us what you think. But we're going to get back to the Kentucky Derby contenders right now. Our next one in line is going to be Overanalyze for trainer Todd Pletcher, one of several Pletcher trainees in the Derby.
Right, yeah, he just won the Arkansas Derby in what was the slowest clocking in something like 30 years.
He won the race very easily, but as you said, it wasn't fast. And something about this horse that I've noticed, and I picked him in the Arkansas Derby, but I don't like him in the Kentucky Derby. Something that I noticed in his pattern is every other race he seems to fire, and every time he comes up with a win, he seems to bounce in his next start.
Right. One of the things I do like about Overanalyze is he'll be going third off the shelf in the Kentucky Derby, as will many other horses. But he had a particularly easy race in the Arkansas Derby as he raced wide around the turns, and jockey Rafael Bejarano, who I consider the best active rider in the country, said he had something left at the end.
He definitely said he saved something, and I think he did it. It looked that way, and I like Bejarano as well. I follow Southern California closely, and
right.
he's an outstanding rider, and I'm glad that he's got a legitimate Derby threat here. But as I said, I don't really like him because of his pattern. He can't be trusted. He comes out of that slower race. I think of the Pletcher trainees, he's not one that I consider a top-tier contender at this point, even though he's been in my Derby top 10 for a long time. But he did win the Remsen last year, and another horse that we'll mention in another video, he beat Normandy Invasion in that race. And for a while, it looked like the Remsen was going to come back a little bit weak, but it seems to have picked up steam now. They both have run well in their last starts.
Yeah, it's picked up strongly, and this horse Overanalyze, he's got very good two-year-old form. He was third behind Uncaptured in the Iroquois, and like you said, he came back for a nice win in the Remsen. That was an exciting race. They bobbed heads at the wire, and he ended up getting the victory.
That was a nice win, and then he came back this year. His first start, he drew an outer post in the Gotham. He raced wide. It was just a flat effort, yeah. And then he bounced back nicely.
Yeah, that was just to tighten the bolts. That's a meaningless race.
Yeah, and people kind of gave up on him a little bit, but he ran well last time, and we'll see how he runs in the Derby. Our next contender is going to be a Revolutionary, and you know that I'm high on that one.
Right, yeah, the Son of Warpath, one of my favorite horses of all time. He's picked up Calvin Burrell.
And that could hurt his price.
Yeah.
You know, he's won the Derby 3 times, and then he's been on horses that really didn't have much of a shot the last couple of years.
Yeah, was it twice the Appeal who won the Sunland Derby and was like 8-1 or something in the Kentucky Derby, even though he was like slower than molasses. And
exactly. So is he going to take up this Burrell action? Joe DiPola mentioned that on the radio show this morning that he said that he kind of liked Revolutionary, but he thought maybe he would take too much action because of the Burrell factor. We'll have to see what kind of action he takes. But this horse, he seems to be the total package. He's overcome a lot of trouble, like in the Withers Stakes, and then he broke last in the Louisiana Derby, and he rallied from far back to win nicely, and then he galloped out strong. Looks like he wants to go the distance. Still, his speed figures in his last couple weren't spectacular at all.
Right, he's run some pretty good. He's run some pretty big races in his career, and he's going to need something quick to fire into. So look for Calvin to be skimming down along the rail. If he can get on what he does.
If he can get on the rail, you know that's what he's going to do. He's going to try to pull him behind that bird. Or if the rail, he'll just going to sneak up the rail. We'll see how it ends up playing out. Lines of Battle is the next horse we're going to talk about. Don't really know much about him, but so far this Dubai to the U.S. angle hasn't worked out at all for the Derby.
Right, yeah, total X factor. And like you said, it's been an awful angle for success in the Kentucky Derby, but he's bred top and bottom to go the distance. He's got Grade 1 winners all over, Grade 1 dirt winners, I should say, all over his pedigree. And Aiden O'Brien is like the European Todd Pletcher.
he wants to win the Derby. These connections definitely do want to do well. And he did come to the U.S. once in the Breeders' Cup. He ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I think he finished maybe 7th last year in that. This will be his second trip. Yeah, his second trip to the U.S. And until that Dubai angle works, I'm not going to consider him a threat. But once it does work, I think you're going to see a lot of people trying that. I think the Godolphin folks especially. And I think they would really be aggravated.
That it wasn't them.
Exactly, that it wasn't them.
It was their arch rival that did it.
Yeah, I'm sure they would not be happy if he won.
Right.
The final horse we'll talk about in this video is going to be Vyjack.
Vyjack, extremely versatile horse. It tells you that he's got so much talent that he can win on or off the pace.
Yeah, and that was the first time he lost last time, but he was hardly disgraced. He ended up finishing 3rd in that Wood Memorial. And that was a bit of an odd race, how we mentioned the pace was just so slow.
He came out of there with a lung infection, so that is a legitimate excuse. I mean, imagine running on a treadmill and your lung is infected trying to breathe like that, and for him to run as well as he did, wow.
Yeah, that was a solid effort, and he learned a lot in defeat, and he lost nothing in defeat, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And
he didn't take it easily.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he does at the extra distance. I don't know that's going to help him. He's also out of Into Mischief, just like Golden Sense. I'm not sure that he wants to go this far. We'll have to see how the distance factor will end up playing into it. But he did have a workout. It was good that you said he had that lung infection, but he did have a workout at Fair Hill yesterday.
Right, and it doesn't really bother me that he's by Into Mischief. I think this sire is going to be proven out to have a little more stamina than people believe.
And we've seen this before where some of these horses, we're kind of suspect on their ability to get the distance, and then they kind of outrun their pedigrees.
Right.
And that could easily happen since a lot of horses bred in the U.S. aren't really bred to run that far.
Exactly, yeah. They can all get the distance. It's just how fast.
Exactly. That'll wrap up this video. And right before we wrap it up, actually, of the 4 horses that we talked about, who do you think has the best shot of the group?
You know, I think this might surprise you a little bit, but I'm going to go with Overanalyze. You know, Rafael Bejarano getting him up right on the wire.
Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping you were gonna go with Revolutionary. Revolutionary's been my top Derby choice, I think, since late February. Ever since Violence retired, I moved him to number 1. He stayed there, and now I still have to see him train well. If he trains well, he'll definitely be my top choice. But if he doesn't look good in the mornings, I may change it. But at this point, Revolutionary is still on top of my list. And now that will wrap up this video. We'll be back in our next video. We're going to talk about, for the first horse we'll talk about is the Wayne Lukas trainee, Will Take Charge.